What's up, everybody? This is Jeremy from Octane TV. If you have not tuned in to part 1, I highly recommend doing that because part 2 will probably not make a whole lot of sense to you if you have not watched part 1. We will put part of part 1 into part 2 to make understandable sense of what is going on with this video, but it's still not going to make 100% sense if you have not watched part 1. We will put a link down below of the part 1 series of this triple saga Mustang series. So this is going to be a lot of different videos, probably close to 50 to 100 of all the vehicles that we have purchased over the past few years. We're going to start with this triple saga Mustang situation. It was a long one, a long drawn out one. So the first 2 episodes are going to be about our black MT82 Gen 3 car from CarMax. We left off on episode 1 of us taking the car back to CarMax to let them know about all the things that we did not like about the car. So stay tuned. We're going to go over every single thing else in this episode of episode number 2. And if you have any questions or any comments about any Mustangs or any cars that you have purchased from CarMax, comment down below. Let me know if you've had any problems with Mustangs, especially Gen 3s, MT82 cars. If you've had any problems with buying cars off of CarMax, please comment down below and let us know. We want to hear what you guys think. That's why we're making these videos, is to let everybody know of our buying experience with cars. If you've had a terrible buying experience or even a good one, let us know down below. Comment down below and stay tuned. This is episode number 2. So I was told after a week of waiting on the car, which is pretty average to have a car shipped, that the car would be at the Carmel location. I was told that the vehicle was cleaned up, ready to go. It was serviced, whatever you want to call it. They have their pre-authorization inspection and, detail it, clean it up, get it ready for me to come and buy the car. I drove all the way up there, and at the time I lived an hour away, especially with traffic. If anybody knows anything about our city, traffic is terrible because of all the construction. I get up there, and I'm not joking with you. I will show you the pictures. It looks like this car had never been washed inside the door jambs, inside the trunk, there was so much pollen and dirt inside the jambs of this thing. Maybe the rainwater washed it off. That was it. It was like, you couldn't even tell what color it was underneath the dirt and the pollen. There was so much yellow pollen and dirt underneath it. The racing stripes had been faded completely off. They were destroyed. I asked them to remove those, and they said they felt uncomfortable doing it. Probably about 100 rock chips all over the car, dents everywhere, scratches everywhere, paint blemishes everywhere. But that is not even the worst part. That is actually probably the mildest part that I could probably fix myself or have fixed. Where it gets extremely ugly is I go out to test drive the car, and I get in the car, and the driver's side seat looked like a 500 to 1,000 pound person had been sitting in it, destroyed the whole entire driver's side lumbar support on the seat, where the foam was just completely deteriorated. It was gone. And I was like, what in the world? This car was new. It had low miles. I'm like, it was a used car, obviously, but for a new year. It hadn't even been owned a year. And I get in it, I get down by the cup bezels. I'll show you some pictures and some videos. And everything that was chrome inside the car was completely deteriorated, chipped off. And it was like the plastic underneath the fake chrome. And I'm like, why does this car look so weird? And I started driving, and it drove great. No issues with the drivability of the car. I love that. And I thought, you know what? There's some little things about it. I can fix the paint. I'm always going to end up wrapping every car I own anyway, so who cares? So I thought, you know what? These are things that I can fix. I was a little disappointed with the customer service about not cleaning the car. They never cleaned the car. They never washed the car. They never detailed the car. But I looked at it as, I'm getting a good price, whatever. I'll just leave it at that. So I proceeded to buy the car. I got good financing. I got all that gone through. The one great thing about CarMax, and that's why I buy a lot of cars off of them, is they give you a 30-day, 3,000-mile return policy. Thank God for that. Let me tell you guys, because I'm gonna tell you right now, when I got this car home, I started to look over the car more in detail. That's when everything was kind of scary for me, because I was so starstruck by buying the car, and you know, I got approved and I'm like, man, this is so awesome, that I didn't look over the car in detail because I expected them to be able to do that. I didn't think that I was gonna have to look over this car and be like, man, there's a whole bunch of stuff wrong with it. I proceeded to open up the trunk. When I opened up the trunk, there was so much pollen inside that trunk. It was like completely, like it blew up yellow into my face. And over the pollen, I couldn't see that underneath the pollen, all the way around the bezel of the trunk, I'll show you some videos and pictures, it was rotting and rusting, the whole thing. And it was going through the paint, through the metal, and it was just rotting it and rusting it. And I'm like, what causes something like this? I've never, in my whole lifetime, I've never seen anything like this on a car, especially a brand new car that literally has only been owned for a year, less than a year. And I go to open the door and I look down at the door jamb at the hinge, and I'll show you some pictures and videos of that. And the hinge is rusted and rotted. I mean, it's not like a tiny bit of surface rust. This is like rotted rust. Like it literally has like destroyed the metal to where it's just gone. I mean, it was disgusting. And I did not understand why those two items on this car were completely destroyed. So I took it upon myself to get underneath the car. I looked underneath there. I couldn't see any rust underneath the car or the piping or anything like that. But those two items scared me to death. I popped the hood. There was so much pollen underneath the hood. In the gas door, the pollen was everywhere in the car, along with the dirt, along with the rust. Everywhere you could open up a crevice where there was metal and you could open it, there was rust or something rotted or rusted. I called him immediately. I told him how I felt. I was really upset about the paint scratches, the paint chips, the racing stripes. I mean, I'm buying a new car. I would expect it to be at least somewhat, in my opinion, 80 to 90%. I felt like this car wasn't even a good 60%, especially after I just saw this rust. I mean, this rust just took my A- to B+ car down to a complete D, almost failing car. And I was mad. I was like, I cannot believe I just signed my paperwork to buy a car that literally has so many things wrong with it. I'm usually upset about one or two things, but there's so many things wrong with it that now I just completely lost all faith in this car.
So this is the 2018 Mustang GT that I purchased. It's got the performance pack wheels, Brembos, pretty much has everything. The only downside is, which it's not very sunny right now, you can hear the birds chirping, but it's about to be dark here soon. The only bad side is everything on this car is pretty much destroyed. This car is, as you can see, it is beat up really bad. I mean, there's rock chips all over it. The stripes are just destroyed. I mean, there's nothing left of them. The wheels are actually in really good shape. Tires are in really good shape. The Brembos, you can't even tell what color are. They look like rusted black. Same way the rotors are kind of the same way in there. But tires, it's got the Michelin tires on it, and I mean, that part of it isn't bad, but if you go back here, there's dings all over this, and this is actually the quarter that has been resprayed. This whole quarter's been resprayed. But if you look at the gap on this side, that's the side here, and then you look on this side, it's twice as big. So this gap up here is definitely 100 times bigger than this side. It's also sitting up, raised up here. Because you can see it's just ledge, but those are the least of my worries. Like if you look at this out in the sun, you can see this. I mean, this car is, it's just beat up. Whoever owned it didn't take very good care of it. The stripes are just destroyed. The biggest thing that's the biggest problem is, and I'll show you, these are the two major issues with this. Okay. All right, I'm gonna show you guys here real quick. This is issue number one right here. This is like this on both sides too as well. So this is the hinges, completely rotted. Not sure why, but that's problem number one. That's kind of easy to replace. We can just replace all these hinges, but why should I on almost a brand new vehicle, 20,000 miles? And then if you go down here, it's got this crazy chipping. Look at this. I mean, this whole thing is just delaminated from there. I mean, whoever owned this vehicle, I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about as well. Here's the bolsters. Look at this. They're just gone. Like, every bit of this is gone. It's all worn. This car has 20,000 miles on it, and it's worn this bad. So, I mean, this is pretty bad. This is the worst part of this car. So, everything is covered in yellow pollen. Everything. It's all inside this. This is how I got the car. They didn't even wash it, anything. Look at this. This is how I got the car. This is how they delivered this car to me, was like this. I'm not even, like, if anybody thinks I'm joking, I'm not even joking. Like, this is how I got the car delivered to me, with rust spots coming through. Like, literally rust spots. This is the worst part. Look at this. This whole thing right here is rotting through. The whole thing, all the way down, is completely rotting through. All this yellow stuff, though, luckily is just pollen. But I mean, look at this. Who gives a car back with this? I mean, I'm just blown away at who could think that this is normal on a car that's 2 years old, 20,000 miles. This is what you think is acceptable. So this is kind of an overview of why I won't be keeping this car. And the engine bay is covered with yellow pollen. There's also this little thing that changes the interior lighting, which is really odd. I've never seen it in all the other ones. But right there, you see this LED right here. This little button, when you click it, it changes the LED button colors underneath both sides. It's kind of crazy. I'll turn it on the ignition. Well, you can't see it because it's not dark enough, but it's lighting up red. And then if you click this button right here, watch when I click this button, it'll change all the colors, which is pretty crazy. And it'll do it in here too. It's pretty cool, but I don't think it's stock, so it's pretty crazy. But that's pretty neat that it actually does that. That's the only thing I love about this car, and it does have the performance pack gauges and all that stuff, but kind of crazy.
So I sit and thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna drive the car around for a little bit, see if I can get over it. I showed some people, they still couldn't even get over it. They're like, why is this thing rusting? It's new. And we all just could not put our heads together. So I did some research, and I found out that the car had been repoed, at least from what I can gather, because it went from one owner, short time, 6 months, to a complete car auction with no miles and 6 months of ownership. Then I found out the car had been owned in Florida. It wasn't Atlanta, it was Florida, right by the water. So the only thing I can think of is the car must have sat by the water and deteriorated from the salt water, because the guy or girl or whoever owned it must have let it sit, didn't make the payments on it, it got repoed. I don't know, but the car was just so bad that I could not handle it. I did not want to own this car anymore. So I took it back to CarMax, and let me tell you what they told me. CarMax told me that there was absolutely nothing that they could do, and they were sorry. And I said, I understand that. They said that they would make it right with me no matter what. And I said, I value that and I appreciate that. They offered to buy all new hinges, new deck lid, replace all the chrome in the car that was deteriorated, the seat. And I just told them, I said, listen, like, if you guys want to invest thousands and thousands of dollars fixing all this stuff, fixing all the paint, I mean, go for it. But my whole experience with this car has been completely ruined. And I'm kind of over it, to be honest. And you tell me what, you know, to keep this car for 30 days, and if I'm unhappy, to bring it back. Well, I was beyond the point of unhappy. My whole new car buying experience was completely shot in the ground. And I didn't want the car anymore. Like, I felt like the car was tainted. Something had happened to it. People weren't divulging all the information. I didn't even know the car had been repoed or had been in a car auction. I didn't know this information, and I felt stupid and naive and ignorant, and I just felt like, you know what, I'm just gonna take the car back. That way I can start with a clean slate, find me a car that is a better car. And at the time, I didn't know a whole lot about MT82, 10R80. I just knew that the 10R80 was a fast car, and I knew the MT82 was a decently fast car. I didn't think it was that much slower, but it obviously is, and I didn't know that at the time. So I just took the car back. They made everything right with me. They gave me my money back. They gave me my deposit back. They apologized. They made it right with me. So I really value CarMax for that. I did go back to them and ask them if they could find me the same car, which they did, because there's, I mean, my God, there's Mustangs everywhere. So they went to find me another Mustang. We looked for another Mustang for that price. That's where the problem came into play, was CarMax is not willing to, what's the word I use? They're not willing to negotiate or haggle on prices. So I wanted an orange Mustang around that same price, because I thought if I'm gonna buy one, I'm gonna buy the color that I want. I do not like black cars because they show so many imperfections. So CarMax decided that they would try to find me an orange one. We couldn't find one for that price. I mean, it was literally $7,000 to $10,000 more for an orange one. So I was like, you know, let me sit and think about this. The payment's gonna jump dramatically more than what I wanna spend. Let me think about it. So I did some searching on the internet, and I started looking around to see what I could find for myself. So what I'm gonna say with this video is, I learned a lot about Mustangs, especially 2018 and up, MT82 cars, and you know, Gen 3s. I learned a lot about this car. Just from owning that one car, put a lot of questions into my mind, which was the smartest thing I could have done. Thank God it was from a legitimate dealership. So I started doing research, and with that research, I learned so much, and it helped me to become a little bit more aware of my, you know, what I wanted to look for in the right car. I didn't know anything about this car. This car was a PP1 car, which I like that. I love the wheels, I love the Brembos, I love the front lip. Somebody had switched the PP1 spoiler to a different spoiler, which is cool. I didn't like it at first, but now I really liked it after seeing it for a couple more times. But it made me realize exactly what I wanted. So this time I wanted an orange pearl car, and I wanted that color, and I wasn't gonna settle for anything else. So in the next few videos, we're gonna kind of show you what I did to find a car, what I went through to find another car, where I went to find more cars, because the journey stopped with me going from CarMax in local Indiana, and I just started traveling out of state finding cars. So I have went out of state, I can probably tell you 20 times in the past 3 years. So this is probably the easiest and the mildest story that you're gonna hear for the next multi-part series of all the cars that I bought. Let me tell you, it has been an adventure, and I'm telling you, the next one, you're gonna wanna hear this story, because it's probably gonna be about 10 episodes long, and it was a journey of fun, stress, and disaster. So this is gonna be the easiest one that I make. The rest of them, you're gonna wanna sit down, get some popcorn, and get it ready, because the drama is gonna start, and I can promise you, you're gonna really wanna hear these stories. So stay tuned.